Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're gonna get started in about a minute. Thank you everyone for coming to this workshop. Good morning. Hey, thank you. Please feel free to use the chat. You can show your camera, you can unmute, you can say hello. It's gonna be very casual. I'm here to help you and to support you through this process. I'm going to be sharing my screen in just a second, and this is being recorded. We'll be sending this video within the next couple of days to make sure that everybody has access to it. If it's okay, I would love to get confirmation that you can all see this, so you can either put it in the chat or say that you can see this presentation. Just want to make sure that everybody's able to see the screen sharing part. And I'm just going to give it a few extra minutes just to make sure that we have um, everyone that's attending today. Hmm. Alrighty, let's just one more minute for folks to appear, show up. Just gonna some things. Beautiful. Thank you everybody for the confirmation. Let's see the chat right here. Not sure. I'm gonna give it one extra minute for folks. I'm gonna drink some water because I just had an event and I've been speaking a lot. And we have people coming in. Good morning, Lauren. We haven't started yet. I'm just giving a few extra minutes for folks to arrive. And just for everyone's information, this presentation in this workshop will be recorded. It is currently being recorded. And I'm gonna give it one more minute and then we'll get started. All right. I think we can get started. Welcome, everybody. This is the Arts and Humanities Education Projects workshop number one. This is in a series of multiple workshops that we'll be doing to educate the community and all of you on the process of applying for an Arts and Humanities Education project, which we also called AHEP. My name is Mauricio Pita. I am the grants management specialist. If I look to the side, it's because I'm looking at the second screen with the presentation. Um, there is my contact information at the bottom. Feel free to take a picture of it or screenshot this. I'm very happy to answer any questions via email, or you can schedule an appointment with me. I love meeting you. I love talking with you. I love learning about your program, so please don't be shy. Um, And in this presentation, we're going to go through an agenda, but we're going to basically discuss the grant program and sort of some of application tips and things that you'll find out as you work on your application. Um, so this is sort of the agenda. We're going to be discussing the overview of the AHEP guidelines, um, who's eligible, and what can you spend the money on, some of the application process and mandatory documents that were required in order to apply. Our portal, I'm going to discuss a little bit of on the portal. We'll talk a little bit about work samples, what makes a strong work sample, as well as some support materials. And then I'll talk about a little bit about what the review process looks like, sort of the timeline, what the grant cycle looks like, and notification times. And of course, I'm going to give time for some questions and answers at the end. As well, I will be pausing throughout the presentation to see if you have any questions. Um, if you have any question, you can feel free to put it in the chat. I will be answering in different blocks of time, but if it's a quick question, I might be answering it right away. Sometimes some questions might be answered throughout the presentation. So, but please don't be shy to put in a question in the chat. Again, my name is Mauricio Pita, and I'm very excited that you are all here. Okay, so. Um, Before we get started, we're always looking for panelists. This is a competitive grant that it is not a sole source program, meaning that we don't determine who gets a grant. The community does. The commissioners and the agency and myself do not decide what gets granted. The community does. And so if you would like to be a panelist for other grant programs, we always are using community members and their expertise to review applications. You can use the QR code, and welcome, 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 welcome. We're just getting started, so you're not missing out on much. Um, so you can feel free to use the QR code to apply for to be a panelist. There is a stipend at the end of the paneling process, and so we always need the community support to review the applications that we receive. Um, I like to start with the land acknowledgement. It has been deactivated. That's okay. I will be putting in a link in the chat. That's because probably see, this is great. I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to make a note and I'm going to put it at the end. Okay. Because this is important. Panelist link. Okay. Thank you. So I always like to recognize and I might mispronounce this, so I apologize. The Nacochtank and Piscataway people, the first residents of the land that would become the District of Columbia. Um, every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes and hope for a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than it can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by not honoring the truth. We stand on the ancestral lands of the Nacotchtank and the Piscataway people. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events, and to use such truths to guide the legacy of this Arts Commission. So, um, thank you. Great. Um, if you are in the website and you don't speak English, there is you can select a different language. Google Translate translates the website live, and there's an option on the website to do that. Um, And also, if you have a different ability or if you are requesting accessibility accommodations, please take a moment to capture this email address. We're able to accommodate reasonable accommodations to ensure that you have everything you need in order to apply to have a successful application. Um, so Jenna is the person who's in charge of accessibility. She's wonderful, and so we really do our best to make sure that you have everything you need in order to apply for this grant. Next. So again, the chat can be used for any questions. So some questions, samples that we often get is when is the due date? Does my organization qualify? How do I upload and label my work samples? Some previous applicants, we change the process every year in a way. And so sometimes the memory can be fuzzy. So I'm always helpful and always trying to make sure that I'm answering all the questions. So feel free to put in questions in the chat. Happy to help you out there. So, what is the commission? I want to start with that. First established in 1968, the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities is an independent agency in the District of Columbia government that evaluates and initiates action on matters relating to the arts, humanities, and encourages programs and the development of programs that promote progress in the arts and humanities. We are an agency that advocates your art on a global scale. We want to make sure that your art can travel the world. We also advocate for the mayor and the council to make sure that the arts are funded. And so we activate community, the artistic community, to make sure that you are receiving the funds that you need in order to be an artist in DC. Um, CAH is the designated state arts agency for the District of Columbia and is supported primarily through the district government funds and in part by the National Endowment for the Arts. Um, so AHEP, now we're getting into AHEP. The goals for AHEP is to provide high quality arts and humanities experiences, to strengthen the value of an arts and humanities education as a critical component of education, and to support activities that are consistent with local and national learning standards for arts and humanities education. I'm going to go into detail as to what that means for us in the next couple of slides. So, overall, you can this is an organizational grant, so individuals unfortunately do not qualify. There are other programs that the agency offers for individuals, like the fellowship grant that is currently open. So if you're a teaching artist and an educator and you're an individual, I would consider applying for the fellowship. This is for organizations. Organizations may apply for up to $30,000 to support in the following categories. So you can do an in-school project for youth in pre-K to 12 settings, an out-of-school time projects, whether it is an after-school program or a summer camp for youth in pre-K to 12 settings. Professional development opportunities for classroom educators. So ways to incorporate, if your organization wants to educate teachers and how to incorporate art into their classroom, that is another cohort that we'd like to learn and support. And community-based learning, so arts programs that are designed for older adults 50 plus, usually require some sort of partnership with the senior center, but we like to support programs for older adults. I'm going to go into detail into those. Um, so what is in school? What is an in-school program? So in-school programs are activities that take place within the traditional school day and may include things like an artist residency, a field trip, and arts integration opportunities. The projects must connect curricular standards and instructional programs that are already occurring in the schools, and the assessment and the evaluation of the program, the criteria, should emphasize an intentional and comprehensive design. Um, Great. Thank you. Um, what are out of school time projects? So projects that are happening after school, during the weekends or in the summer, they may happen out of school, but not necessarily. You can have a summer program that happens outside of a school, and that is okay as well. Um, they programs that happen in school, after school programs are usually not facilitated by school personnel. So this is another type of programs that we fund. And we'd like to give priority to programs that engage the youth and the participants for repeated times throughout the year. So a one-time workshop that happens in a school, or a writer that's going into do a speaking engagement at a school, that is not something that AHIP really is for. So that's something to consider, right? Something that would work would be if you're doing a 10 visit series to a school with a presentation at the end. That's just one example of something like that. Um, Another cohort that we fund is professional development projects. So high quality training opportunities for educators. So our goal is to ensure that teachers um, are really great at their arts discipline. One way to do this is ways to explore integration into arts instruction with non-arts academic content. So how to utilize art in teaching math. That's just an example that I'm coming up with, right? So that's something that we like to fund. This is for classroom educators and for instructional staff, and or for teaching artists that are particularly serving in DCPS or DCPCS. And lastly is projects for older adults. So either culturally relevant or experiential projects that advances engagement for older adults in the arts and humanities, right? These are mostly activities that happen in senior centers or senior residential facilities. We have had cases of programs that have partnerships with different buildings that are collaborating with like different seniors that live in multiple buildings. I've seen that happen before, but you must be able to demonstrate and identify an older adult population to serve. And so a partnership or something that can guarantee that sort of engagement is often required. Um, I'm going to pause here for a second and see if anybody has any questions at this moment. And you can feel free to put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself. And if not, I will continue.
I have a question. How you doing?
Yeah, go ahead. How you doing?
Doing quite well. So, I heard that you fund a series of classes,
Yeah.
and I'm a little late, so my apologies.
No, no, please.
Um, Now, if you're funding the program that we create or offer the schools, or yeah, um, uh, do we now offer that to the school for free and not
Yes.
charge? Okay.
Yes, this is something
Okay.
that the school should not pay for.
Okay. And it's just schools. What about libraries and things? And
Libraries could potentially qualify. That is something that yeah, it depends. The important thing is to identify the population. So if it's a youth, it has to be K through 12. So a library would
okay.
have a diverse group of
Yes.
ages, so it's a way to identify that population. So if,
Okay.
if there's a way to guarantee that population, exactly.
Okay. In recreation centers.
Yes.
Okay. Got
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you
Awesome.
for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sure.
Um, any other questions?
Did you mention the amount? I'm sorry.
Yes, 30,000 is the max.
Okay. And we have to demonstrate where that money is going.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that's gonna come up later in the presentation. We're gonna talk
Okay.
about budget.
All
Yeah,
right.
you
Sounds good.
have to. Yeah, basically you have to show how that money is spent, and sort of a breakdown of the expenses and how that's going to be distributed. Um, can students? I have a question in the chat that I think is great. Can students participate pay a tuition fee, for example, a summer camp or after school classes, out of school program? Yes, they can. They can. This is funding the pro part of the program. I know that these things are expensive, so yes, they absolutely can pay. Um, Great. So, any other questions before I move on? Would an open mic exclusive for the youth? Yeah, as long as it's if the open mic series is well, that's very broad. I'd like to know whether or not this is when is this going to happen? Is this kind of in a school? Is this going to happen after school? What's the structure of it? Does it happen once a week? Library after school, that would be considered an after school program. The only thing is a similar situation is identifying the population. How do we guarantee that you're going to have youth visiting that program in a consistent basis? And so, there's letters of support that you can provide, partnership letters that you can provide later on that can guarantee to the panelists that this is a program that youth are actually actively participating in. But yes, that would be considered a program that we would consider to fund. Um, let's move on because a lot of these will sort of be answered as we go. But please keep the questions in the chat. I'll address them as we go. Um, to sort of talk about the sort of application timeline here, the application opened yesterday, and it will close on July 24th, so approximately 30 days to work on this application. The awards get announced on or after October 1st. It depends on budget and other factors. It also depends on how many applications we actually get. Um, but a few things that are important here to mention is that incomplete or late applications or applications that do not follow the instructions may be considered ineligible. So that's for review and funding. We get a lot of applications, and so we have to be able to vet which applications actually go to panel. Um, I recommend going and reading through the request for applications. You can find this on our website, the RFA, completely. It goes into detail about everything that you need, including documents, um, timelines, grant guidelines, program guidelines, legal, and it's not also extensively long. It's about a 20-page document, so I really recommend reading it through it. It's going to help your application if you read it through it. Um, you must be up to date with all of the reporting requirements prior to CAH grants. So, um, uh, if you receive a grant with us and you have an outstanding report to submit, we really require you that you are up to date with everything that we require before you apply. Um, um, Organizations may submit one grant application. So let's say you have three programs that your organization runs. You have an after-school program, a summer program. We ask that you apply with one of them. Choose the program that you think could benefit the most from this grant program and apply with that. And the application a change from last year to this year is the time the applications are due. Last year, our applications were due at 10 p.m. This year, our applications are due at 5 p.m. And like I said before, the applications are reviewed and scored by a panel of arts professionals. We don't make the decisions. Commissioners also don't make the decisions here. We don't really review the applications. The panelists do. We review applications for compliance purposes, whether you're missing a document or a video clip is not playing, or you're having issues with the W-9. Things like that will help you with. But in terms of the content of the application, that is not something that we have a lot to say, just because we work here. Let's create a conflict. Um, this is important. We'd like to highlight culture and community. So our agency is a community-centered agency that recognizes the importance of equality and community engagement within the arts and humanities. So we embrace that sort of nuance of DC's distinct cultural design and are really committed to ensuring that all DC residents have universal access to the arts across all 8 wards of the district. I understand that a lot of programs are specific to neighborhoods, and that's completely fine, but we often like to see how that is also reflected of the larger DC landscape. And so you can learn more if you go into the website. There's a section called resources for grant applicants, and you'll see right there that there's not only the forms, I think you can see my cursor, not only the forms that you can download, you don't need all of these, by the way, but these are all there. Um, um, but in this section highlighting culture and community, your grant application, there's information as to that can help you make that section of your application more clear. Um, so the application itself, so logging into the grant portal, logging into the grant application, um, The organization identification, eligibility, requirement, and uploads and scoring criteria is what we're about to go into next section. Um, so when you go to the commission website, which is down right here at the bottom, which is not a great place for it, but I'm going to put it in the chat actually, because that way you can just like access it right away. See arts here. There we go. It's in the chat right here. There you go. Um, you are going to scroll down to grants, and then from there, sorry, I have to move here. You're going to scroll down and you're going to see grant application portal. When you click on that, you're going to see this welcome page. And actually, arts and humanities education projects right now is the first one on the top. If more grant lines open up, it might move down, but right now it's on the top. You can click on guidelines. It'll give you just a very brief information on guidelines. But once you click on apply, it'll take you to an eligibility questionnaire. And depending on the answers, it tells you whether or not you're eligible. And so that way you don't waste your time. So it's really great. And this is a new platform. It's called Submittable. We've been using a previous platform was called Jungle Lasers, but this is very, I think, intuitive grant portal. Um, I'm also happy to answer any sort of challenges that you may have with Submittable. I'm putting my email address in the chat. I'll put it again later on, but also feel free to email me if you're encountering any bumps in your application process, whether a file doesn't work or I can't see this question or things are getting deleted or things like that. I'm happy to help you with that as well. As you see, the next section on the website, once you click on the grant line, the AHEP grant line, um, it'll ask you to let's find your organization. So individuals again are not eligible for this grant line, only organizations. Um, it'll ask you to put in your organization name. Um, I recommend using your EIN number, just because there's a lot of organizations across the country that have very similar names. I encountered actually today, this morning, a theater company, and the word theater, the R-E and E-R spelling, it's two completely separate organizations. And so my recommendation is to use the EIN number. Um, once you find your organization there, and by the way, this is a like a global database, so this has even if you have never applied to our grant, that your organization, if it's a nonprofit, it'll appear there. Um, Once you select that organization, it means that you're applying on behalf of the organization and you can move on to the next section of the application. Okay, so this is sort of the eligibility part of it. And after I talk about eligibility, I'm going to pause for questions. So, in order to qualify for an AHEP grant, you must be a nonprofit with a designated tax exempt status under the section of 501(c)(3) status. You must be registered with and authorized to do business in the District of Columbia, and you must have principal offices in the District of Columbia. So if you're an organization in Maryland or in Virginia, unfortunately, you're not eligible. Um, and also the program itself, the programming that you're hoping to do with youth, with seniors, and with teachers must be carried out in the district as well. Um, the organization must have an active board of directors, and you must comply with all applicable mandates by October 1st of 2026. These are basically all the required documents, whether it's reporting from previous years or clean hand certificates or W-9s. All of this has to be in our hands, ready to go by October 1st. Um, and you must submit all compliance documents and the guidelines. There's more eligibility. Section 2 is that you must be current on all taxes and liabilities that are owed to the district or have a plan to resolve all taxes. This is demonstrated by what it's called a citywide clean hands certificate. I'll talk a little bit later on as to how to obtain a clean hand certificate. Um, and I'll say this later as well, but I'm going to say it now. Um, let's say you don't have a clean hand certificate right now. Let's say that you don't have one next month. You can still apply. You just have to communicate with me. Um, we can still review your application and go to panel as long as your clean hand certificate is clean by October 1st, then you are okay. But we like to have that ready. The reason why is because when we provide the funds to you, if you are owe money to the district, that money will be intercepted by the government. And so that means that you won't get the money. And so we want to make sure that the program gets the money. And of course, be in good standing with CAH. And lastly, and this is sort of really eligibility caveat for organizations that are receiving GOS funds. GOS is our General Operating Support grant. Um, so if you are an organization and you applied for the General Operating Support Grant, you may only apply to AHEP if you are an arts education organization and the program that you're applying with is completely different from any of the programs that your organization currently has. So, let's say you are receiving a GOS grant and you have an after-school program for middle school students that you run all year and you receive GOS funds. You can apply for AHEP if you will, for example, would like to expand that program for high school students, right? It's a scope of age that's completely different, that is still under what we fund, but it's not part of what we fund for GOS. So that's one example of something that's different. If you are not an arts education organization and you do not receive a GOS grant, you can apply for an arts education organization. So let's say you're a film studio, a film production company and you'd like to work with students in school for them to develop documentaries about their communities, and you want to visit the school, once a week for 3 months, and at the end, the school's going to have an amazing documentary about their community. You don't have to be an arts education organization. We like to help you do that program. So those are two examples. By the way, I just came up with those two. This is not examples that are real life examples, but some ideas. Um, Great. Um, and lastly, in terms of eligibility, the 2027 GOS recipients may apply for only one project grant and one capacity grant. So if you receive a general operating support, you can get one of the project grants that we offer and one capacity grant. Let's just say that you apply to all four. Let's say that you apply to AHEP, It's Arts, Field Trip Experiences, and Public Art Building Communities. You may receive all of them. You will not get all of them. You'll have to choose which one you will be receiving. The trick here is that we don't tell you, you have to make the decision before you know the funding. So you have to think about what mission priorities matter the most. Um, and of course, a capital project grant is something that you can always get. I'm going to pause for questions here because I know I've been giving you a lot of information. So, any questions so far? And you can, I'll stop sharing so that way we can talk to each other. Any questions right now? No. All right. If I bored, I'm not boring, I hope. Okay. All right. Let's continue. Um, let's continue talking. Let's continue going through it. I know I'm giving you a lot of information. So in the submittable, you'll see a section on AI. There are two questions about AI that we want you to answer. You will not be punished if you use AI to build part of the narrative of the application. We just want to know. Um, so the more information we know as to how AI was used, the better. Um, we just need to know how you're using AI. Um, this is moving along. This is moving. There you go. Um, so that's something that that we incorporated this year. But just be honest with us. We've gotten really good at identifying work that's been created by AI. So again, we just want to know how artists and organizations are using artificial intelligence. Um, but again, you will not be punished. This is not like, oh, you disqualify because you use AI. No, that's not the case at all. Everybody's using AI. Next, what can you use the money for? The funds can be utilized for the following items. So you can utilize this grant for to pay for salaries for arts and humanities professionals for the nonprofit organizations. These could be executive directors, directors of education, staff members that are working directly with this program. um, Arts humanities practitioners or consultants, whether it's teaching artists, visiting artists, uh, the personnel that's coming into the school or the senior centers that actually are executing the program, you can pay them with this grant. Space rental and fees directly related to the project implementation. Let's say you are an after-school program and you need to pay for the month that you run in this program of your local church that's providing that space. Rent for this is something that we help cover. Travel and transportation directly related to the project. Let's say you have you're going to you're going to a school and the teaching artist, I don't know, you're having a visitor that is going into the school to execute a program and you need to pay for the travel to get to it. That's something that we cover as well. As well as let's say you have a program where it's a music creation program where the students are building a song throughout the course of 3 months, and you want to take them to a recording studio, you absolutely can pay for transportation to take them to the recording studio. Um, Equipment purchases that are directly related to the project and equal to no more than 25%. We really like to focus the funds into the education part of it, but of course we understand that there are costs related to materials and equipment. So let's say you have to buy a microphone or something that will help you run this program. Um, we ask that you don't spend more than 25% on that equipment on the grant. And lastly, and most importantly, overhead maintenance and administration not exceeding 35% of the grant. So executive directors, for example, are a really important part of the process, but we know that their focus is not 100% of the program. So we ask that this sort of administrative part of it is limited to 35% of the costs. Right? We want these funds to be utilized for the execution of the program itself. Um, so those are sort of our allowable costs. What you cannot spend money on, unfortunately, you cannot spend money on food and beverages. So unfortunately, we cannot pay for the pizza party at the end of the program or for breakfast for the students. I know I tell my executive team always hungry kids don't learn well, but this is a district-wide rule, and so we are under the same rules. So food and beverages is not something that we cover. Tuition and scholarships. Let's say you have an amazing student that you want to send them out to Juilliard because they're amazing and you want to give them a scholarship with this money. You can't, unfortunately. Regranting and subgranting, right? You cannot regrant this fund. Um, Creating a fundraiser or special event for your program using these funds, not something you can do. Debt reduction, again, equipment that exceeds 25% is a kind of redundant, but I have to mention it. Again, expenses that are not directly related to the execution of the project, right? Let's say that you traveled somewhere, or you sent your teaching artist to a completely different school to do something that's not part of this program. That is not something that we cover. Temporary or permanent public art projects. So let's say that you're, painting a mural in your school that is not connected to the you know, program. That's not something that we fund. Operational reserve. This money cannot be saved, cannot be put in a reserve for the organization. It has to be spent. It has to be spent. If monies that are not spent have to be given back to us as an agency. And funding to universities, foreign governments, or DC government agencies, including DCPS. So if you would like to use these funds to pay for, teachers for DCPS, that is not something that we do. If you are a public charter school and you're applying for this grant, we ask that, and let's say you're using a teacher that works in your school, you cannot pay them. You have to create a separate contract for them outside of the school contract, right? So they're a contractor, and not necessarily a teacher of the school, a staff of the school. So everything has to be separate. Um, great. Let's pause here for a second. I see a question. Hi.
Hi, my name's Ilana. I'm an executive director and I also serve as an educator in our
Hi, Elena.
programs. Hi, thank you for hosting.
Of course, my pleasure.
My question was, is it clear enough if we decide to apply for the grant and we list me as executive director slash educator, will it be clear enough to the reviewers that it's not necessarily administrative overhead? Is there anything I need to do to specify to make clear that some of that may be overhead, but it's also going into program services?
That's great. So in the budget, when you submit the budget, I would just create a separate line for that. And then when it comes to reporting, there's also an allocation of funds, right? So when we see your payroll, when you report to us, you can say, okay, 50% of your monthly of this particular couple of months was utilized for overhead costs, and this 30%, I'm making these numbers up, are utilized for the teaching and instruction part of the program. So that we get that a lot. We know that there are organizations that range from different sizes. And I know that nonprofits, people wear multiple hats. I used to work in one. So that is doable. We've had that before. And so as long as, again, you're really clear in how you
Right.
break down the budget and the reporting, you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Mauricio.
Of course, my pleasure. My pleasure. Any other questions, folks? I think that I always feel like I'm talking so much, but that's the job. I'm talking a lot. Um, and of course, I have colleagues behind also doing their own workshops for their separate programs. Um, let's move on. Let's move on. And again, happy to, continue to, happy to pause at any moment if somebody has a burning question. Like I said before, organizations are eligible organizations may submit for one grant application, and all the applications must be submitted completely online by 5 p.m. on July 24th, 2026. We unfortunately do not accept like mailed applications or hand-delivered applications. We always like to everything do through the grants portal. If you have issues with technology or that it's not something that you're very good at, or that you don't feel comfortable doing, make an appointment, come to the office with me. I will help you submit that application myself. Like I won't write it for you, but I will help you navigate the grant portal and in the office. We have office time where you can visit us and we can do things with you. This is all part of what we do. Our goal is to make sure that you apply, that you get your materials in order. We don't want technology to be an impediment for a potential successful program that we need in the city. Um, some people are really new to grants. I hope this QR code is not deactivated, but just try it, folks. We ask the community to self-report people who are really good at grant writing or organizations that do grant writing. There's a long list of folks that can help you write an application. These are folks that are not associated with the agency. They're just community members that are volunteered that can help you with a grant application. So there's a list of resources there. You can reach out to them if you need to. Um, some of them I charge, but I don't know them. So, um, all right. So what documents do we need? We need these. We need a balance, and I'm going to go over a little bit what they are. A balance sheet, a certificate of clean hands, a certificate of insurance, an organizational budget that's separate from a project, a budget, an IRS letter of determination, a 990, a W-9, the list of current board of directors, a profit and loss statement, resumes of the key personnel, the people that are going to be working on this grant, whether it's administrative or teaching artists or artists in general. A statement of certification is a document that is a native document to the agency. It's just a four-page document. Um, it just tells us who is negotiating and who are we in contact with. It's basically who's authorized to talk to the agency. It's a very easy document. You don't have to write it. It's a form that you fill out. Um, and of course, support materials and work samples. I'm going to be discussing a bit more on all of these in a second. So work samples are a crucial element of any application. Please apply with your strongest arts and humanities output. It is a way for panelists to assess the skill and impact of the work, and it must not be older than 3 years. We want to fund actively engaging programs that are currently engaging with the community. So something that you did 5 years or the organization did 5 years ago might not be the best fit. Um, and and this is a way for us to also see how the organization is arts-based. There's more information on the website on this link called the Guide to Grants. This is an overview of all the grants that we offer, and there's more specifics on work samples. We go into details in terms of disciplines, like what media, depending on disciplines, what makes a good work sample. So I would look into that. And of course, submitting older work samples may deem the application ineligible, something that you did 10 years ago, unfortunately, was not going to move forward to panel. Now, the difference between work samples and support materials is that support materials are basically the documents that strengthen the application that are not necessarily related to that you didn't do. For example, um, a review, a letter of recommendation from a host uh, place, right? Letters from parents. Some lesson plans or syllabi, a certificate that shows that you have the skills that are required for this program, an evaluation, awards that the program has received. So basically, it's external validation that lets us know what others think about your program, whereas work samples is your work itself. And resumes, basically, we just need to know who is going to be working in this particular program. Key artists, administrators, facilitators, people that are involved in the grant activities. The resumes of the key personnel helps us understand basically who has the professional knowledge and the work experience. So it is important that they showcase, how the organization is producing excellent programming. It also tells the panelists whether or not the organization has the capacity to execute the program as presented. We get a lot of applications that are very ambitious, and then the panelists may determine that the people may not have what it takes to run such an excessive program, right? So this is just ways for us to assess the success of the program. So um, who is responsible for the organization, who is responsible for managing the proposed project, and who is executing the project. So there are some examples here, like artistic director, a curator, and those are the people who are responsible for the arts output, right? Who is responsible for managing the project itself? The executive director, the director of education, right? Is it the teaching artist who's managing the project, right? And who's executing the project themselves, with a visiting artist, a local artist, a teaching artist, a contractor, right? Um, and the list of the board of directors gives the panelist a sense of who is responsible and gives us insight as to who is um, in charge of the procedural oversight, who is really taking a look on the overview of the organization. So we really suggest not just names, right? We don't know names. Like it can be John Smith and Mauricio Pita, myself. That would be crazy. But like these are just names. So tell us a little bit about what they are. You don't have to do a lot, right? Like what their roles or responsibilities, and we'd like to know where they live. Um, they don't all have to live in DC. That is actually normal that the board of directors is not all from DC. But we want to see what the percentage is. We want to see where in DC they are. So you don't have to put their address. You can just put their ward or their quadrant where they live. That should be enough. In terms of other documents that we need right now, these are some of the financial picture. We want to see the financial picture of the organization. So there's a lot of questions as to what each of these things are. So a balance sheet is basically a document that shows us, you know, what liabilities the organization has, basically the debt the organization has, and the equity, sort of what the organization owns, right? What the assets are, right? And so that way we're able to take a bigger picture as to the stability of the organization. We want to make sure that the organization doesn't run the risk of, not completing the program as intended. The difference between that and a profit and loss statement is a profit and loss basically shows us revenue and expenditures, right? So balance sheets, liabilities, and assets, profit and loss, expenditures, and revenue, right? Two very different financial pictures, right? One's money going in and out, the other one is things that are more long term. Um, Form 990 is you have to submit the latest 990 that was submitted to the IRS. Um, it gives us a really good picture, not only about the financial picture of the last fiscal reported calendar or fiscal year of your organization, but also lets us know whether or not the organization is actually an arts-based organization or not. Um, 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 Sometimes we get asked often like what the latest is. That's something that will go case by case. We understand that, some organizations have a different fiscal year, some operate a calendar year, some have to file taxes later. So just reach out to me and then I'll let you know what the latest is for your specific case. Um, and the organizational budget is the basically a picture that shows us sort of the projected revenue of the future fiscal year. This is organizational overview rather than just the specific project. Like, what are you going to do with this 30,000, or whether the project is more than that. This is more of what the organization overall, how is it distributing the funds of the organization overall. Um, Another document that we need is the Certificate of Clean Hands. This is operated by the Office of Tax and Revenue and the Office of Chief Financial Officers. You can create an account if you don't have one using my Tax DC. Um, um, this is kind of a newer system, so if you haven't secured Clean Hands in the last 3 years, you may have to apply for it. It is very quick to get a Clean Hands. They just have all that data ready for you. Um, just have your decent tax information sort of available because they might ask for, organizational information, and you pretty get the you should be able to get the document pretty quickly. Um, and again, like I said in the previous slide, if you don't have a clean hands at the moment of the application, you can still apply. Just communicate with me and um, have a plan as to how that gets resolved. As long as it gets resolved before October 1st, we are a little bit more flexible in terms of that clean hands. We also know that sometimes clean hands get submitted, you have everything ready, but it doesn't necessarily get updated on the Office of Tax and Revenue, and so we just like to know where you are at in this process. The Form 990, that's a form that everybody might be familiar with in this room. Um, let's make sure that we're using the latest form. The latest form was done in March 2024, so October 2018 is not something that we accept. And that should be in the top corner right here. You'll be able to see the date. All the information should match. All the documents that you submit, all of the names should always match, right? It shouldn't be your personal W-9 with an organizational 990. Um, um, you should select in box three, whether you're a corporation, or you can put other 501(c)(3), which you should be. But if you leave that blank in corporation, we also have other information that we can rely on as well. The address should always match to all the other documents as well as the clean hands. We do not accept PO boxes. It has to be an actual physical space in the district in order to qualify. Make sure you're putting your EIN number here, and it must be a signature ink, right? Typed signatures are not accepted, unfortunately. We need to have an actual wet ink signature or a digital signature. That's Adobe. That's also something that we accept. Um, and also, I'll say this, please make sure that all of the documents are saved as PDFs. That's an important thing. Sometimes Excel spreadsheets and Word documents open differently for every panelist, and we just want to make sure that they're all seeing the same exact thing. I'm going very fast, everybody, because I'm running low on time, and I want to make sure to give time for questions. And I can stay later too if we need to. Certificate of liability of insurance. This is a certificate that you obtain with your insurance provider. It gives us a picture of the insurance policies that the organization currently holds, the expiration dates, and the coverage amounts. So we always require that we are the certificate holder. The information is going to be here as well. You'll find that in the RFA. As we go through the vetting process, if you submit an application and it has the wrong certificate holders, I usually reach out to you and say, hey, correct this, even after the application has been submitted. That's fine. Additionally, we ask for a written waiver of subrogation, which is language that says um, uh, that we are basically not liable for anything that we're not insurance like liable for anything that could potentially happen during the program. Um, and this is something that's specific to AHEP. Not other programs require this specific thing that I'm about to say, which is if your project is involving youth outside of a school, something that doesn't have the supervision of a DCPS teacher or or an administrator would require that you obtain sexual molestation coverage, SAM, um, before you start the program. If your program is an in-school program, usually the school will have insurance coverage for that. But if you're an after-school program or if you are, a summer camp, we ask that you acquire that policy. Um, and all of that is in the RFA amounts and everything. I think it's like 1 million coverage. Any questions on that, on required documents? I'm about to enter into review criteria. No, everybody eligible? Everybody ready to go? Okay, move on. Um, so the panelists will be looking at your application using this review criteria. It sort of guides them as to what's priority for us, and this is, I think, important for you to know what they're looking at and what their priorities are. So, arts, humanities, and arts education content takes the biggest bulk. It's about 40 points on the application, right? So, the applicant demonstrates proficient knowledge of education standards and practices to achieve success in a project implementation. The project's goals and activities are developmentally appropriate to the intended grade levels and participant abilities. So a very complicated program for, pre-K, might be like, wait a minute, what? So that's something to consider. The applicant demonstrates the use of appropriately experienced personnel to plan and implement content. This is where the resumes take a role. The project activities ensure participant engagement and advancement through comprehensive lessons. Um, and the applicant's work samples and educational materials demonstrate that you will have a high artistic and humanities and education standards within the chosen disciplines. So that's the biggest bulk of the application. Other review criteria that we consider is capacity and sustainability. So Does the organization have a skillful project management, organization, and deliverability? So this is where the financial documents, the board of directors, the resume of the executive director come into play as panelists review your application. The applicant's budget information is detailed, accurate, feasible, and directly related to the activities of the grant request, and the applicant demonstrates the use of appropriate administrative personnel to monitor and track expenditures. This whole section is about 20 points. Next is community access and engagement. So, like I said prior in the highlighting culture section, we really like to prioritize applicants who are giving intentional focus to working with populations who have been historically excluded or marginalized, and who are responding to their needs in an authentic way. So, you must demonstrate an educational experience that it's inclusive, diverse, and it's either done through educational content or the composition of staff who are directly engaging with the participants. So there are many ways to go about this, which, I can talk in some questions. I know we're about to have 2 minutes, 2 minutes before we're done, but I can stay here later to answer any questions. The project design demonstrates commitment to engage all participants by ensuring equity and access, which are considering factors that include cultural, socioeconomic, geographical, physical, and intellectual ability. And the applicant outlines a plan for current and future adjustments to the project based on the evolving needs of the community. And the community impact section is another 20 points. So the applicant is demonstrating how the project will enrich the art education community of students, teaching artists, educators, or older adults. The projects also demonstrate the ability to reach a reasonable number of DCPS and DCPCS students, instructional staff, or older adults, and the applicant presents effective evaluation methods that will measure both project impact and effectiveness and participant engagement and development. This is also 20 points total. So we talked about evaluation as part of the things. So there are different types of assessments and evaluations. So a qualitative assessment is often subjective, right? So basically, a student testimonial, this project absolutely changed my life. I cannot be the person I am without this particular project, right? Thank you for letting me be a part of it. Great qualitative statement. Quantitative assessment is empirical data that demonstrates growth. So that same student, her grades at the beginning of the school year were like C's and B's, and then at the end of the projects, all of a sudden, well, within the lifetime of the project, her grade increase. That's just one way of doing it. There's other measurable data that you can utilize to assess this, but having both is a really great way to show assessment. So ways to do this is pre and post testing, needs assessment, observational assessment, summative assessments that utilize mixed method, like a portfolio assessment or a focus group, right? There are different ways to assess the student or the older adult or the professional development of the participants of your program. So that's something that I think we often find lacks sometimes. Um, the grant program is very sort of streamlined. So we review the content of your application for eligibility and vetting for compliance documents. And then we distribute the applications based on cohorts for panels. Panels of community members will score the application, will meet also and discuss, and then we'll create a ranking. From that ranking, myself and our staff will create a funding recommendation based on our budget. And then we send those funding recommendations to the executive director of our agency and the district commissioners for a funding determination. Most applicants or applicants will be notified about their application on or after October 1st. A lot of that, again, has to do with compliance documents being submitted to us, ensuring that we have everything that we need and our budget. Um, again, notified on or after October 1st. Um, This is a grant package, usually includes multiple documents that need to be submitted back to us after the letter of intent, whether it's a budget with an adjustment, because sometimes we won't grant the 30,000, but we'll give you 20, or we'll give you 19, or we'll give you 25, right? And so you have to submit an adjusted budget, project budget for us. Um, um, and there's other documents that we send with the grant application as well. The original copy of the grant agreement, and all associated documents must be completed and returned to us. And in terms of a disbursement of the funds, this can change. Sometimes people we don't you don't get the funds on October 1st or October 6th or October 10th, right? It depends on when things are sent back to us. And so sometimes things can take a month or sometimes 3 weeks or sometimes 2 months, right? It really depends on how quickly you are able to submit all the documents in an orderly fashion. Um, and if you are seeking direct deposit, um, at the time of your application, there's a direct deposit option. We really recommend that because this is the only way that we're actually able to track where the funds are. Mail checks are really difficult for us to track, so they can get lost in the mail since they're not mailed directly from the agency. The money comes from the district. Four more. I want to thank you for your patience. Every single grant recipient is subject to monitoring requirements in the CAH Guide to Grants. So, a couple of things in terms of reporting. If you receive the funds, will awards that are more than 12,500 require an interim report. So, sometime in April, we'll require a report showing how have you spent half of the funds, and with proof of expenditures and invoicing. So that way we get to see where the money's going. We can also do site visits. So we'd like to, this is not to be, checking how things are going. We know we're funding the program. We like to see how it's going. We want to be an active member of the community with you. We're proud of your work. We want to support you. So we do a site visit sometimes to just sort of see what the money's doing, see how the impact that you're all having in your community. And then we sometimes check in with you online. We send emails. We are a partner. We want to be a partner with you. So, again, we also like to connect grantees with other grantees, whether there's a need. I'm looking for a filmmaker to come in and help me with this. Do you know anybody? Yes, we do. We work with thousands of artists in the district, so we like to connect people as well. Um, Tips and general advice. So any rough advice that I give on terms of your application or anyone gives, can never guarantee funding, right? So sometimes I will review an application ahead of time and provide feedback, but this is no guarantee that since the panel of the community members are the ones that are making the decision, my feedback does not guarantee any funding. So take the feedback that you get from anyone with a grain of salt. Um, this is really important about budget. Select a logical project. It's really tempting to say, I'm going to request $30,000 and I'm going to do all these things with that money. Stick to what you think is feasible and what you think is actually accomplishable in that year that you have with those funds. Um, the award amount, it doesn't really necessarily influence the chance of success. We've had programs that can do really great things with very little. And so just be mindful and specific as to how the money is actually being spent and what you actually need. Um, and remember your audience. The panel is a group of panelists that are from different arts disciplines. So they're reviewing a wide range of projects. So be clear, be specific, be simple. Um, they're reviewed in cohorts, so all the in-school programs will be together, or the out-of-school programs will be together, all the professional development and the older adult programs will be together. So they're reviewing this. They're not comparing it to each other, but they're looking at it with the same sort of lens. These panelists will not be familiar with your organization. So don't assume that they know what you do. Be really clear to express what it is that you do. Also, they're not going to be doing research on you outside of the application. In fact, not allowed to do external research, right? So let's say that you are providing, a link to something, a website that you did. They have to stick to the four corners of the application. And don't assume that because you might be a well-known organization or a well-known artist, that they'll know who you are, right? Always be clear as to demonstrating who you are. Um, and write the applications such as a panelist would um, could imagine the whole program happening, right? So really paint the picture, give a broad overview and detailed timeline and expenses of what the project is going to look like. In terms of attachments and work samples, restrict videos to 2 minutes, and include a start and stop time. We reviewed hundreds of applications, so sometimes less is more. Upload videos as hard files, not links to websites. Um, like I said before, ensure that all documents, W-9, work sample, certificate of insurance, are all W-9s, are PDFs. It keeps it ensures that there's no panel that the panelists are able to see all of the things that you're submitting it. If you have multiple resumes, please be sure that you merge them into one single document. It has happened in the past that a panelist will have missed a resume because it was a separate file. Keep everything sort of together. Um, Again, you do not upload a lot document that has all the links of all the videos and then they just YouTube links. We will not accept that. You have to have hard files. Um, and before the deadline day, just make sure you copy and paste the application response into a portal and upload requested materials to ensure submission is complete. Don't do it the day of. I know it's really tempting, but really try to do it the day before just in case you encounter a hiccup. Um, and review and make sure that everything is appearing as you are intending it to appear. You can review your application and make sure that things are appearing as they're meant to be. I recommend creating a separate folder on your computer with all of the documents that you're going to be submitting for this application, W-9, everything that you're submitting in a separate folder. Review all the materials that are recommended before you submit so that you don't miss anything. And I recommend also printing or downloading the questions of the application so you can work outside of the portal and then copy and paste the responses into the portal. That way there's um, no issues with the portal itself. There's no formatting in the application, so if you want to bold something or that's not something that you can do here. Um, and keep a copy of the review criteria nearby. This is a great cheat sheet for how to craft the program. Of course, thank you, and I'm so sorry that I'm running late. Um, Feel free to email me. Um, um, to how to narrate your program and what to prioritize. So keep that in mind. And I think it's good to have someone that is actually not familiar with your organization on your work review it, your application, because um, that way they can give you feedback that is objective and not from somebody who might be having some bias or somebody who might already be familiar with your work. So something it's just great feedback because that's who the panelists are going to be. Okay. Any questions? Anybody? This is my contact information. That's my email address. That is my phone number. And this is my address here in the district. You can visit me in person. I'm in the office Wednesday through Fridays. I work from home Mondays and Tuesdays. The best way to do this is to like email me and make an appointment with me because I have meetings and events. But I love to meet you in person as well. And I'm here to support you. But yeah, any questions that you have about the program? I'm so sorry that this ran 11 minutes late. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Um, and I'm gonna put my contact information in the chat. Um, um, yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you. And if you have to go, log off. And if you want to stay and talk to me, you can. There's no pressure here. I'm putting my contact information. And yes, please reach out to me if you have any questions, any emails. I'm happy to help you. And if you have to log off, log off. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. I think sounds good. Thank you, Julian. Thank you. Good day, everyone. Good day.
Hi, thank you so much. This was
Of course.
extremely informative.
Good.
Wanted to go back to one of the
Previous slides?
gentleman. Well, first it was the question. The gentleman asked the question about if you could charge these. Say you're doing an after school program, could you charge the school? And you responded no to that.
Correct.
Then there was a follow-up question where a person said that if they were doing a summer camp,
Summer. Yeah.
can the students pay tuition? So is it that the
It's the difference between a school
hmm
paying for the program or
yeah,
or students paying for the program. I think that uh, it it also depends. So that's a kind of a nuanced question, right? Because in the program, summer camps, a lot of summer camps will charge tuition for the students, but some of them might have a percentage that are, free.
okay.
And so it depends. So that's something that with him, I said yes, because generally speaking, summer camps have a tuition cost.
Hmm.
And so we have funded programs that will charge tuition for a percentage of the students, and we fund the part of the program so that some students can go in for free.
Okay.
Um, but a school, we cannot, you know, a school shouldn't be there. I'm going to give you an example. There are some after school programs that will charge a school, and they want to expand to a DCPS school,
Hmm.
and that school doesn't have the money. This grant will may be able to
I
help
see.
send that program to the school. So again, it's
Okay.
depends on the scope and the where the program is going, right? Like if you have a after school program and you go to five different schools, but
Yes.
one of the schools is a Title One, and you don't want that school to pay, that's something that AHIP can help with. But it's
Okay.
nuanced, it's not like a yes or no.
Yes, I understand. I think, and the other question, are you sending out the PowerPoint of
Yeah,
this?
I'm gonna be sending out the PowerPoint and the recording of this as well.
Hmm.
In the next couple of days. I just have to obtain the list of people who are attending. And I'll send the PowerPoint so you can have all of this as well.
Okay. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it. It was extremely informative, and
great.
we look forward to moving forward with this.
Yeah, I'm excited. What's your organization?
It's an arts Koinonia community, and I also am just thinking of some other
Hmm.
like STEM and STEAM programs
Uh-huh.
that I know of that combine the creative arts with the science and technology parts. So it's made me think even.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Hmm. But I appreciate your time today, and
Thank you.
we will definitely be in touch with you.
Of course, absolutely. All right.
Okay, have a
Talk to you
wonderful
soon.
day. Okay,
You too.
bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.